Hey, it's Nick with Armament. Quick little video here on some tuning tricks for the ALB, our adjustable locking bar for the FRT, WOT, and Tommy trigger. I've got a few customers right now. Specifically, I have four. Three of them are 9mm builds, and one of them is a 22 build, where we're still running into reset issues, even with the positive reset bushing and our ALB. So what this is it's literally just tolerance stacking. On top of 9mm, their components are all over the place. Carriers are high and low. There's no real standard. Uppers and lowers are kind of all over the place too. So overall, great success with these ALBs. But we do have a couple of these that just need a little bit of tuning, especially with the 22 kits. Those are a whole nother animal in within themselves. So what we're going to do is this is tuning the locking bar sear surface, and this is above and beyond 99.9% of people's ability or comfort levels. And that being said, again, our official policy is to have a qualified gunsmith, or in this case even a machinist can do this, but a gunsmith do this fine tuning and actually fit it to your trigger. And this really is in those cases where it just needs to be custom fitted to that, and you're going to get great performance. It's just a little tedious. So that being said, here is quick tutorial on what material to remove. With these locking bars and the dimensions that we set them to, you have a very small margin. You've got 0.002 to 0.005 before you get into the trigger releasing the hammer without the locking bar being disengaged. So what that means is, to be blunt, if you go past 0.005, you've probably ruined the locking bar's geometry. So it's doable, it's tedious, takes just a little bit of patience, and if you just do a couple swipes at a time, it goes fine. And again, I'm talking to you qualified gunsmiths about this. So here we go. Surface we're talking about is right here. So this is the locking bar assembly. This is the locking bar sear surface. And this is what releases the trigger, so you can pull the trigger and fire the subsequent round. Now, this distance between the pin and this surface right here, that's one of those critical dimensions. We found on some earlier FRT15 triggers that their dimensions are a bit different than the newer ones. Wide opens are all over the place, and Tommy triggers are kind of all over the place as well. So again, this isn't something negative about the triggers, their parts or my parts. It really is just tolerance stacking. These aren't precision bench rest guns, so these triggers weren't designed to have extremely tight tolerances, because then they just simply don't work. You need those wide open tolerances, but with those wide open tolerances you get variations. Some work great and others just need a little bit of help. So what we're going to do is this surface right here, you've got 0.002 to 0.005 allowance on it, and what we're doing is, obviously you can't add material to this, but you can remove it. Very simple process. I'll show you how to do it here. Now, this is a quick and dirty method. You can use Dykem, you can use whatever you want. I prefer just a good old Sharpie. That's just going to give you a reference for that surface. These locking bars are H900 heat-treated stainless steel. You can get away with doing this with a good file. You've got several different options here. Typically, a file is not going to be your best option, as this metal is pretty hard, but you can get away with it with a good new file. Best option here is just a stone. Either way, it's going to work. You're only removing 0.002. It's a very little material. For the sake of demonstration, I'm just going to use this file. You want to make sure you keep these surfaces perpendicular to each other. You're going to use that Sharpie as your witness mark. And as you can see right there, that shiny new surface is the material we've removed. You've got a little bit of removal on this. That's okay. That's just where this stops against the trigger. It's most important to try and keep these surfaces parallel. I personally actually put a slight bevel or chamfer on this sharp right there and actually got a better reset. I've also ruined a lot of these locking bars in the R&D phase by doing that. So I hate to say it, there is some trial and error here, but there is some room. You can put a small chamfer on that edge right there, and that's going to help the reset just a little bit. Again, very, very, very small increments. Be patient. Remove a little bit of material. Try it. Put it in the gun. Don't fully assemble it. Don't put the safety back in. Don't put, you know, both pins in with everything. Don't fully assemble it and try it. Put it in the lower. Put the 2 pins in. Put the upper on it. Unload it, of course. Cycle it. Give it a shot. And that's how you really kind of walk these in, and you're going to have a custom tuned at that point. You can use micrometers, you can use calipers, you can use however method you want of measuring this. Just make sure you keep track of it. Use a good set, obviously. Using my trusty Brown & Sharps. I've had these for many, many years. That surface, all you're doing is keeping track how much you're removing, where you locate from and measure. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you do it the same every time. You can do it this way. You can do it this way. You can do it tail end. I mean, there's any number of ways you can do it. Just make sure you do it every time. Again, you've only got 2 to 5 thousandths before you remove too much material from this surface. And what that happens at that point is the trigger releases the hammer without the locking bar being hit and actually engaged. Obviously, that's a bad thing. Your trigger will never function if you go past that. And a good way to test it is put it in the lower, again, upper on it, unloaded, rack it, and just pull the trigger with the charging handle back. Or with no upper on it at all, cock the hammer by hand, get it reset, and then pull the trigger. If the hammer drops without the locking bar being activated or pushed against, you've gone too far. So I will be offering these locking bars just like this. This one's a little bit blue because it's in various stages of heat treatment. They're going to be silver. They're going to be in the white. No components, so no shims, no bolt, no spring, no plunger. It's going to be just like this as you see it right here. And what I'm going to do is I have a few extras, so I'm going to offer them up as kind of a tuner kit and for spares. So what that is if you want to have a couple of these around that you need to fine tune, or God forbid you went too far in one and it's not recoverable, you got a spare. So these definitely aren't cheap. They're not cheap for us to make, especially in small quantities with you know, everything that's surrounding these triggers, but it is a good option and it's out there. So that's about it. If you have any questions, let me know. Again, we're seeing this with especially 9mm and 22 long rifles. You may need it in other platforms just again because these triggers are kind of all over the place and dimensions on ARs out there are all over the place. So as best as I could, I tried to get a good drop in and limit any fine tuning, but it really just wasn't the case. Most of the time, these are drop in, maybe adjust a shim or two, get it timing where you want it, and you're good to go. But again, these 22s and the 9mm are just really all over the place. And these triggers were honestly never designed to work in those. So we're pushing the limits of it, and this is what we get for pushing the limits of it, but the rewards are great. So if you have any questions, let me know, and we'll go from there. Thank you.